Anyone know why we really need it? What's that? Absolutely. Google your own name and see how many of you are around. I've done it. There's a lot of Bob Hayes across the country. And a lot of Bob Hayes across the country. So that's the primary reason why you want to put the address. You'll never find an attorney prepare an agreement of sale that does not have the addresses of all the parties. And that's why they do it. It's a further identification of the party. So I've had agents say, well, I don't want anybody getting my buyer's address because they might steal my buyer. Really? Well, yeah, and yes, yeah. And the other thing about the address is the title company needs it, right? Everybody needs it. So why not make it easy? Put it on the agreement of sale. And of course, that goes for the seller. So you got the buyer. Where are you going to get the seller's address? Where are you going to get the seller's address? What's that? At his house? Yeah. Yeah, the best one is CRS. Take it off the tax record. Take it off. That's where their tax bill is going. That's where the tax bill is going, because the sellers, the house that you're selling, that may not be their primary residence. That might be a vacation home. So you get it off the CRS. That's the best place to get it. So we have the seller's mailing address. That's different, or could be different, than the property address. So next line, we need the property description. We need the complete address of the property, including postal city. I think you can understand what the municipality and the school district is, but I will caution you to make sure that you have the right municipality there. I just reviewed one agreement yesterday that the agent had the wrong municipality there. So make sure that you have the municipality checked. I find that sometimes some of you that set your DocuSign or your .loop up, you have the basics already filled in, and sometimes I find the municipality, like in this case, was from the agreement that they did before, and they didn't change it. So you got to be careful on that if you're using that. And then we need the tax ID number. Tax ID number. There's a little change in there. We used to call what we call the PIN number. We put the PIN number on there. That's the 14-digit long. Now they don't want us to use that. They want us to use the actual tax ID number, which is going to be right below. If you look at the CRS record, it's going to be right below the PIN number, and it's going to be, for instance, 12.3.4.5. It's that short number. That's what we want in there.
So is that longer number?
Probably so. They want the primary number as being that short number. Yeah, yeah. You can put it in. You can put it on if you want. I just put PIN and then put that number. But make sure you have the title company definitely needs that tax ID number, not the PIN number. And then further identification of the property. What I prefer is the deed book page, deed book volume and page. And that's right on the tax record also, right on the CRS tax record. You can pull it off. I like two places to have the identification of the property. So that would be the tax ID number, and it would be the deed book and volume. And you want to have an idea of the primary reason we want to have that on the agreement of sale? Well, and it's a way that anybody that picks up, whether it's title company, attorney, or anyone, picks up the agreement of sale, it identifies what property that is. That's why we want it. That's on public record. Anybody could take the contract, go down to the courthouse and find the deed and find the tax record from that. All right, moving right along here. We're down to broker company. What's the name of our company? Some of you are smiling because you know I ask that question all the time. What is the name of it? Keller Williams Real Estate, not Keller Williams, not Keller Williams Realty. It's Keller Williams Real Estate. Keller Williams Real Estate. It's not Keller Williams Pocono. Not Keller Williams Pocono. What's that? It's not Pocono Regional Realty. But that is the actual name of our company. Our actual name of our company is Pocono Regional Realty, LLC, DBA, doing business as Keller Williams Real Estate. But we are registered with the Real Estate Commission as Keller Williams Real Estate. That's why we use the Keller Williams Real Estate. I had an out-of-town title company one time give me a hard time because our escrow check says Pocono Regional Realty. And so why is that not Keller Williams? Another story. So then we want the company license plate. Yeah, company license plate. Yeah, what's your license plate number? We want the company license number on there. And if you're in one of our business centers, you would use that. If you're working out of this market center here, you're going to use the RB 067009, right? RB, yeah, you use it. Doesn't matter if you use it. You should use the branch office that you're working at. It's going to be an RO. It's going to be an RO number. But if you happen to use RB, you're not going to get in trouble because they know where to find me. And then you're going to put in the company address. Again, if you're working out of the business center, use that. Don't use, if you're working out of a business center and you're licensed out of that business center, then you need to use that address. What's that?
So I do use this as my address. Only because I'll check up here. And Colleen said that no matter what, they're all under Stratford anyway.
Well, it's all being processed under Stroudsburg. The escrow account is in Stroudsburg.
Because my life is in Stratford, what is that? So it's just a matter of address. I'm using that. I don't get myself down. They will bring you escrow checks will come here and the commission checks.
Your license should be. I will check on that because the real estate commission. Yeah. Thanks for confusing me. Yeah. Well, that's because you always. That's because your license has always been here. Yeah. Yeah. Roving Mary. All right. So anyway, we're all confused on the address. We'll probably be just as confused on the phone number. But again, if you're working out of the business center, I suggest that you use that business center phone number because that's where the calls are going to go. Now, if there's nobody on the phones, they get forwarded here. But use the business center that you're working out of. And obviously, if you're working out of here, use this one. And then the company fax. I think we only have one fax number.
Yeah, they come in with,
Yeah. When was the last time somebody got a fax? A month, a month or so ago, I had to send somebody a fax. Had to ask Linda how to use it. I forgot because I hadn't sent a fax in so long. I didn't know how to use the copy machine. All right. And then we are a buyer agent, or are we a dual agent?
I'm sorry.
Then we're going to check off that you're a buyer agent, broker represents buyer only, or we're a dual agent. First one, always? No? What's that? No? Okay, so dual agency. When does a dual agent come into play for the broker? When does a dual agent come into play? What's that? If you're representing the buyer and the seller, is that what you're saying? If you are, if I am, yeah. So if you're selling another agent's home in-house, not an outhouse sale, an in-house sale. You have an in-house sale, the brokerage, you're going to check dual on that because I'm the broker for both sides, right? Okay. Yeah, good point. So if you're selling, keep in mind that all of our business, all of our market centers are separate LLCs, separate companies. They have separate brokers. So if you're selling a Northampton County KW office, it is not dual agency because there's a different broker down in Northampton County. So it's only offices. If you're selling a Milford listing, you're in Stroudsburg, you're selling a Milford office listing, then it's dual agent because I'm broker for those. All right, goes by the brokerage. Okay. What? I'm sorry. I'm the broker for everything under Pocono Regional Realty, which would be Albrightsville, Tannersville, Jim Galligan's office, Bob Kelly's office, Palmerton office, Scioto office. What's that? Okay, so the question is you have a listing, and now another outside agent from another company. Okay, so now the question is she's the listing agent. She's also got the buyer. Now would definitely be dual agent. So while we're on that question, we move across the sheet there where it says the licensee information, and you're going to check dual agent. You're going to check dual agent. Okay. Same thing. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. But we don't have a commercial office in Stroudsburg at this point. No. And they have it's commercial has its different broker. All right, so we got that accomplished. We put down your licensee name. So if you are using a nickname like I do, when I put in the licensee name, I put in my licensed name, which is the Robert C. Hay. It's not Bob Hay. So you have to have your documents. You have to sign them the same way it's on your license. So, and that's why whenever I fill out anything with the contracts, I have to sign it and use the Robert C. Hay. So if you're using a nickname, don't use your nickname is there, put in your formal license name. And then your license number, phone number, cell phone number, and email. And then we touched on the dual agent. On the top one, which says buyer agent, all company licensees represent buyer, you would never check that. You would never check that one. You're going to check the middle one of buyer agent with designated agent licensee. You're going to check that for co-brokes, and you're going to check it on, if you're selling Ed's listing, you're going to check it as designated agency, not dual agency. What's that? So if you're selling Ed's listing, you're going to check off buyer agent with designated agency. You are not going to check off dual agent. The only time you're going to check off dual agent is if you are selling your own listing. That's the only time you're going to use that dual agency. Yeah, if it's your listing. Yep. Yeah. I forgot. I'm supposed to have somebody run the mic.
Back. Buyer, seller, the name and mailing address. So if it's an LLC, either or, you do the name of the LLC and then the mailing address to the primary provider.
Well, whatever the address for the LLC is, you would use that LLC address. So the question is, if you have an LLC, what address do you use? And you would use the address of the LLC. When you're an agent. Oh, me personally. I got the question now. What's that? Yeah. So if it's my listing, you're selling my listing, then you're gonna check off dual agent, because I cannot designate
On both sides.
on both sides.
Hey, Bob, you asked me about like, in the two skips you took, you have to select all.
What's that? Question is,
The tests that she took
uh-huh,
to get her real estate license, she had to select all. I believe that was what we had to do at one point, right?
select all?
Yeah, for like, if you represent, instead of we're doing here at Keller Williams, we do designated agency, but typically we would, a lot of the agents select the first one.
Yeah, okay. So the question is, and I see it quite a bit, where your co-broke agents, you're going to get an agreement of sale and offer on your property. You're going to check, and they are just going to automatically check for you. They're going to check the top one, the seller agent. I highly recommend that you cross that off and you check off the designated agency. When I do an agreement of sale, most companies are using designated agency. There's very, very few, if maybe one or two, that are not using designated agency. And my feeling is, if they're not, then they can change it themselves. They probably don't know the difference, so they'll leave it alone. Okay? And then let me just back up again, because I did skip over it, and I think someone had brought it up, is you'll see a box at the top that says to check under buyer's relationship with licensed PA licensed broker. You see that it says no business relationship. Buyer is not represented by a broker. So if you would get that situation, and it's rare, but we get that situation where the buyer is not being represented, and it may be a buyer that's coming on your listing, and the buyer saying, I don't want any representation, then you would check off that box, but you would not fill in the information below. You would just check that box off. Very, very rare that you would have that. But it could happen more with a seller. The same question is on the seller. It could happen more on a seller where you may have a FSBO. A FSBO, that's a for sale by owner, right? We all know what a FSBO is.
I see, do I fill it in? Because I have been, I've been doing no business relation and transaction. But I still fill this in, no?
No, if you are a transaction licensee, which we should not be doing much of that at all. If you're a transaction licensee, you would fill in your information, but you would check off the box that says transaction licensee, broker. What's that? No, no, because if you notice, the no business relationship is outside of the information box, but the transaction licensee is inside. So that's why you're going to check that box if you're a transaction licensee. But again, we want to keep that at a very minimum, transaction licensee. Okay, and then of course it goes on to the same with the seller's relationship with a Pennsylvania broker. If you're selling somebody else's listing, you want to get all their information in there, including their email. So if you're selling somebody else's listing, where would you get the information to put in there? You see the name on the listing, but where would you get the rest of the information? On Flex. Just takes a couple of clicks. You can get all their information on Flex. I like the Lehigh Valley MLS. Really makes it convenient. Their name is in blue. The agent's name is in blue. You click on that and all their information is right there. All right, and then the dual and or designated agency disclosure is there. And explains what a dual agency is. Some of you may have missed it when I said it. I'm not requiring the separate form, the in-house form for dual agency disclosure. I am not requiring that now for transactions. I think it's redundant. I've always felt that it's redundant, and so it's right here on the first page of the agreement. So I don't see any need to keep adding more forms or keep using forms that is redundant to me. So. And compliance is aware of that. So if you don't give it, they know that we don't need it. You know that we don't need it. All right. 2 o'clock. It's been 2 o'clock ever since I got here. So that's our information page. That's our information page. It tells all the parties. So there is some debate depending on which attorney you use. Will you stop?
Just so that we put it out there, if there's something wrong in here and we change it, we don't have to get this initial, correct?
Well, that's funny. That's just what I was getting into.
Oh, sorry.
So some attorneys will debate it, but most real estate attorneys say that the first page is an information page. It's all the information. The agreement starts on the second page. That's why it says by this agreement. It doesn't say that on the first page, right? So it's an informational page. So to answer Mary's question is, yeah, if you have something that you make a change on the information page, you really don't have to have it initial. You can, it doesn't hurt, but you don't have to get it initial. So every once in a while I somebody gets a change the whole agreement of sale's been changed, but now there's been somebody wrote in the correct address or something like that. Now do I have to go back and get that initial? No. We're okay on that. All right?
Don't believe that.
I know, some agents won't believe that, but that's the number one thing. That's the number one thing. And I change it and don't initial. They don't even notice it. Okay, by this agreement, dated. Dated. Going to put the date of the agreement, the date that you're doing the agreement of sale. The date that you're doing the agreement of sale. And why is that date important? That's the date that everything is based on the agreement. So we want to have the date that you're doing it. So now there is some, and I know that some of you know this, but I'm getting the agreement of sale. I'm doing it on a Sunday. Shall I date it for a Sunday? No? 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 Don't sign it on Sunday. Don't sign it on Sunday. Don't date it on Sunday. Date it on Sunday. Well, the reason Mary said
Said you don't care anymore.
Well, yeah, I'm getting a little more lenient in my old age, and so one of the things is technically, you should not date or have it signed on a Sunday, and the reason is that Pennsylvania still has blue laws on the record. So the blue law says that you cannot sign for any significant purchase. That's why you don't see car dealers open on Sundays, because if they could, they'd definitely be open on Sundays, right? So they're not open on Sundays. Real estate should be. The contract could be voidable if you have it signed on Sunday, and then a slick lawyer wants to get out of the agreement, they can use that as a violation of the blue laws. Now, I would tell you that the reason I've gotten more lenient on it and said not to worry about it is two. One, in 49 years, I've never lost a case because somebody signed it on Sunday and it was challenged. That's number one. Number two, today it's almost impossible because we're using electronic signatures and their time and date stamped. So how do we get beyond it? You know, if you're signing something on Sunday and it's in person, you can tell the person to date it for Monday or Saturday. You can't do that with electronic signatures. So that's why I've never lost a transaction. And if a buyer wants to get out of a transaction, there's other ways in the agreement they can wiggle their way out and not worry about that one. And most attorneys probably today don't even remember about the blue laws anyway, right? So that's why, that's right. I don't like this. I just don't like the term I don't care.
Dated for
Fraud.
falsifying.
Yeah. I would ask the attorney, did he ever have somebody? Yeah, I'm not, so we're not worrying about that, right? So why are we talking about it?
Day, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna sign it right now, whatever. And now it's the next day that they don't sign.
Yeah.
But I have it dated, say, whether it's that Sunday or whatever, but then my buyers don't sign it and get it back to me
It's okay.
till Monday.
That's okay.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Okay. And then the clock really doesn't start till it's executed.
fully executed. Fully executed. That fully executed means buyers and seller or all parties to the agreement have to sign. That's when it's fully executed. Yeah, that's why I'm not, yeah, that's why I'm not concerned about it. You know, most agents probably don't even know about blue laws either. Most brokers probably don't know about blue laws. But anybody remember when you couldn't go shopping on a Sunday? Yeah. You could not, yeah. Well, back then we didn't have Walmarts, but well, yeah. But I remember the Kmart, when there was a Kmart in East Stroudsburg, I remember that they got fined several times because they were open on a Sunday and in violation of the blue laws. And then they finally gave in, they closed on Sundays. It was a much simpler world back then. Anyway, so now we are going to do the purchase price. Paragraph 2, purchase price is $350,000. So we're going to write $350,000 numerical on line 4, right? And then on 5, what are we going to write? We're going to spell out $350,000 like you're writing a check. You're going to spell out, what's that? What's a check? Okay, that's another class. So we're going to spell it out. $350,000 and all caps. What's that? No. So, Mary, don't invite her back. So Mary's correcting me. You will not write $350,000. You're going to write 350,000. Okay, all in caps. All in caps. You'll make David very happy. 350,000, and it does say U.S. dollars. Mary is 100% correct, so you don't have to write the dollars. Okay, initial deposit within blank days, 5 if not specified, of execution date. 5 if not specified of execution date, if not included with the agreement of sale. Anyone write an offer recently that got the check when they signed the agreement of sale? We used to do that all the time, always get a check. Because we had a myth that we thought we had to have a check to have a binding agreement. But anyway, so yeah, blank days. I see most agents leaving 5. That's okay. You can leave it at 5. But if your buyer needs 7 days to do it, make sure that you put 7 days in because you want to have that deposit in by that date specified. So if you're in a situation where you're in multiple offers, you might click that 5 days down to 2 and tell them to use earnest, right? Use earnest. You don't have to worry about first of all, earnest, if you're not using it, you should. It's the easiest and best way to get deposits. Easiest and best way. Anybody not familiar with earnest? Well, you're forgiven because you're brand new. Yeah, earnest is just like paying a bill, paying a bill online from your checking account. It's the same process, and we do have instructions for it. And if you have a co-broke agent that's not familiar with it, we do have the instructions that you can email it to them to do it. But it's the easiest, best way. There is a charge on it, but it's really no more than getting a cashier's check and then putting it in overnight mail. Dominic?
If buyer X has a tier and a half, is it a tier mode?
It's as secure as you paying a bill online. Yeah. Yeah, it's an ACH transfer. I can't remember what the ACH stands for anymore, but it's an ACH transfer. It's the same. It's the same. Yeah. But it's the same. Okay, so you had a title company that didn't want to take earnest. Yeah, that could be, because typically the title company is going to ask them to wire the money into their account. Yeah, rather than the earnest. If the title company's not set up with earnest, they can't take them. Yeah, that's why. You'd want it for deposits coming into our escrow account. And it's only for escrow accounts. They are. Right.
Being requested. Questions, so preview for you. So I'm gonna put this right here. It's on pause right now.
It's on pause.
It's on pause, you have a button on the computer. When it's solid, it's from hearing it.
I can't get it to go solid. There you go. That's right.
Okay, so there's a button. Okay, there's a button right here, just slide it up, down, when it's solid green, they can hear you, please. Thanks, guys.
They have to come up there and get. All right, so it says if you're going to have an additional deposit, additional deposit, then you would put that obviously in the next line and put the dates up there. Sometimes you'll have a situation where the seller says, well, I can get you $1,000 deposit in a couple of days, no problem, but I need to transfer funds and it's going to take me a longer time. So you might say, well, an additional deposit within 15 days, for instance, for the additional deposit to get more. So, and why I'm on that, the amounts of deposit, how much deposit do you get? $10,000. Do I hear 20? Depends on the price of the house. What's that? Yeah. I will tell you that the 9 out of 10 escrow checks I sign back to buyers are for $1,000. Or for $1,000. And I say that $1,000 is not enough deposit. $1,000 is not enough deposit. Buyers will walk for $1,000. They will walk for $1,000. So back in the day, the standard used to be 10%. So if you're buying a $200,000 property, you're putting down a 10% deposit, a total of a 10% deposit, that would be $20,000. And back then that was like $200,000 today. What I'm saying to all of you is get better deposits. Get better deposits. Show the seller that you're a solid, that your buyer is solid, that they're committed to it. So the question is, because I'm not very good with this microphone, obviously. So the question is do we have to ask for more? You could ask for more, or you could tell them. I need a deposit. I need a $10,000 deposit.
Okay.
I need a $10,000 deposit. You know, if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it, right? If you say to the, if you say to the buyer, how much deposit do you want to put down? What are they going to say? $1,000, $500.
I'm sorry, how about for the listing side, you're expecting the earnest deposit money? Do we have to tell them what we prefer?
Okay, so your question is if you have the listing and now you've got I think they can hit from mine, but that's okay. So now you've got a buyer for your listing and you get a offer that has $1,000 deposit on it. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask for more? Yeah, you can ask for more. But how I handle it is I don't say I want more deposit. I go back and as my counter offer, the seller is requesting a $10,000 deposit. So that's not me saying it, but I told the seller, I recommend we get a bigger deposit and maybe $10,000. So I don't put those things on me like then it gets agent to agent. Well, what do you, no, I put it on, so this is part of my counter offer. So if I get a agreement of sale with $500, I'm still presenting it, which we have to. If there's no deposit there, you have to do, if there's zeros there, you have to present it. But you use it as a counter offer. Yeah, and I commonly do that because most of them are coming in at $1,000. For $1,000 or even $2,000, buyers will walk. They think nothing of losing $1,000. So be it. And the other thing is, quite frankly, is you get a $1,000 deposit, and now the seller doesn't want to get the deposit back. Now we're fighting over $1,000. It's just so get a bigger deposit. It gives the buyer more buy-in to the transaction, and it also gives the seller that they know they got a more bona fide. And if you're writing a competitive offer, if you're writing multiple offers, the bigger deposit you can get, the stronger your offer is. So you're not going to be very strong if you in the multiple offer and there's 5 other offers and your offer says $1,000 on it and one of the competing one has $20,000 on it. So get a larger deposit. Get a larger deposit. Okay. Questions on that? And then it says all funds paid by buyer, including deposits, will be paid by check, cashier's check, or wire funds. All funds paid by buyer within 30 days of settlement, including funds paid at settlement, will be cashier's check or wired funds, but not personal checks. Now, you all know that we have a policy that we don't accept personal checks. That actually is, what's that? Or money orders. So we do not accept personal checks. That's not as much of an issue because I see now a lot more offices has the same thing in their listings as it has to be cashier's checks. And I'll tell you why I instituted the policy of a cashier's check is because we get a check for $1,000 deposit. Inspections are done within 7 days. The buyer doesn't like the inspections. They want out of the transaction. Now I've got a personal check deposit. They're looking for the deposit back that same day that they terminate. We can't do it because the check hasn't cleared. So then what was happening is I was getting a call every couple of days from somebody terminating for their checks. So if we use cashier's check, then it takes all that out of the picture. So that's why we, and KPG offices, all of our offices picked up the same policy and we do the cashier's check. Okay. Money orders we don't like either. And what a lot of people don't realize with money orders is the person that gave you the money order can stop payment on it. So that's why you'll hear Colleen or Linda say, well, we need the receipt. The reason we need the receipt is so that they can't stop payment on it. Okay. But No problem. Good luck. All right. And it has to be in US dollars, no Bitcoin. What's that? Yes, did you say? I thought you said yet. Yeah, I'll try. Wait, you hold that question. Where's David when I need him? I can't remember.
You had said something about them wanting a receipt. Was that with the money order?
Yeah.
So the exception is you would accept the money order as long as they gave us the receipt.
Yeah.
But we don't want it.
So if we have the receipt, we'll take it.
Rental, that's where I come from.
We're not gonna talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and I think Maria can answer the question is I think lenders like to see cashier's check much more than personal checks. Am I correct? Okay. Right. But we're not taking them, so you don't want them. All right. And it just talks about the escrow monies on line 17, escrow monies have to be in compliance with the real estate commission. And that's why, which brings me to the point of getting your deposits into us. The rules and regulations of the real estate commission says that all deposits must be deposited into a bank account within the next business day. So I know that I have some agents that hold on to the deposit checks for several days. That is a violation of the rules and regs of the real estate commission. They're supposed to be in our escrow account within the next business day. Now, I understand that's not always practical because you're working out of a business center and you've got to get the check down here. So it's not always that, but as long as we receive it, we get it in the next day. My point is, don't keep them in your folder. I've had agents lose escrow deposits, checks. And do you want to be that agent that has to go back to the buyer and says, well, I lost your check. Can you write me another one? But we've had it. What's that?
Use earnest.
That's exactly right, Cassie. Just use earnest. It takes all of that out of it. Because I would tell you that I don't even trust the US mail. Well, I'm going to mail you the check. I don't even trust the US mail. I can tell you a story where a agent in Milford sent the deposit down here by US mail and it got lost. A $23,000 check got lost. The Postal Service traced it to Lehigh Valley, and after that they couldn't find it. It was a cashier's check, which meant that the issuer, the buyer, couldn't get the money for 90 days because you can't just take a cashier's check back and return it. So they had to wait 90 days. Guess who funded that for 90 days? Was that? Not personally. I didn't do it personally. What's that? It sounds like a lengthy question, so. Yeah. So an overnight US Postal Service took 8 days to get here, overnight. I have a package that I was supposed to get on Monday from the US Postal Service. I got a tracking on it. It got to Stroudsburg Post Office yesterday morning at 4:25. At 7:05, it was in Saylorsburg. 7:05, it was in Saylorsburg. And I still don't have the package. I don't know where it is. I didn't check the tracking today. But tell me, with a address of 404 Park Avenue, Stroudsburg, and it comes to Stroudsburg Post Office, and in 3 hours it's out in Saylorsburg, is beyond me. Can't figure that one. Can you tell me, Mary? You have all the answers. All right, so where are we? Seller concessions, broker fee. This is the one that is causing a lot of agents heartaches, or heartburn, one of the two. Seller concessions. By the way, that in parentheses there, it says 8/24. You know what those dates is? You'll see that on most of the paragraphs. You know what that date is for? That's the last revision that PAR made in that paragraph. That's the last revision they made in that paragraph. And you also notice on the first page, on the first page, down on the right-hand corner, it says copyrighted Pennsylvania Association of Realtors 2024, revised 8/24, released on 8/24. That was the last update of the agreement of sale. So if you get an agreement of sale that says revised 7/21, you know that it's an old agreement. And that does happen. So I find that agents that do upload their forms, so they put the basic stuff in all their forms in their own files on .loop and on DocuSign. Revisions are made and they forget to update their files. Yes.
One. But it could have been all. Probably. If that's better, you ask them to send the updated version.
Cover that in the stellar disclosure class. No, so the question is, Sonia says she had a seller disclosure that was dated for, how long was it outdated for? Couple years old. So
it wasn't the new one, so it wasn't even like 14.
oh, okay. So what Sonia's saying is that the seller didn't fill it out 7 or 8 years ago, but the form that they completed was 7, 8 years ago, not the current form. That should be sent back and they complete a new one, because the seller disclosure gets updated from time to time. So they're on that old one did not have the stuff that's updated. So that's why it's needed.
Well, it's- Which one, what existed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it should send it back. It's just a broker that's using old form, send it back. And the same way with the agreement of sale. If you get any agreement of sale that is dated prior to 8/24, it's not going to have these next 2 paragraphs in it. Say, no, I'm not kidding you. I want it. Yeah. No, seriously, just tell them, it's out of date and we can't use it. It's not a valid contract. The question I thought Sonia was going to get to was the fact that she has a seller disclosure that is a year old or maybe 2 years old. The seller completed it a year or two ago. Can I still use it? And my recommendation is no. Real estate attorneys will tell you anything past 6 months should be updated. So even if you have a listing, we don't see too much of it now, but when we used to have listings for 2 and 3 years on the market, the seller disclosure would get old beyond. And what real estate attorneys, most of them are saying, you get them updated up every 6 months. If I have a listing that would go past the 6 months, then I just take the seller disclosure to my seller and ask them to review it and make any changes needed and initial it again and date it, just so that it can be, it shows that they had updated, not necessarily fill out the complete form again, but just that they reviewed it. And yes, is it a short question or can I repeat? Okay.
We have an initial How are you doing?
Initial every page. Question is do I have an initial every page? The answer to that is yes. Initial and date every page and sign again on the back, or initial their signature and date on the back. Kathy.
Just make sure that whenever you add an initial, it has to have a date.
Good point. Yeah, that is a very good point. Initials without a date doesn't serve a lot of purpose, because when were those initials put on it? So that's why it's always good to have, and it is an extra step with DocuSign, but it's easy to put a date on there for the initials as well.
Do you have just one?
Each signer have their own date. The question was, can you use just one date? No, I would put a date behind each initial. Yep, each signer. Yep. All right. So seller concessions, paragraph 3. In addition to any cooperating compensation negotiated between brokers using the cooperating broker compensation agreement, PAR, in parentheses, PAR form CBC, or via some other agreement, seller will pay the following fee to broker for buyer on behalf of the buyer at settlement. At settlement. So you have a CBC for 2.5%. You have a CBC for 2.5%. Your buyer's agency is for 3%. What number would you put in there? What's that? 0.5. 0.5%. 0.5%. Everybody in agreement with that? What's that? Yeah, see that there's a difference. The CBC is cooperating broker compensation, right? And what that says is that the broker is going to pay the buyer broker. So in your listing agreement, you have in there what you're paying the selling side. So you have these 2.5% you're paying the seller is you as the brokerage is paying 2.5%. That's what the seller said that we could offer on our listing agreement. Okay. So in this paragraph, it says that the seller is paying the broker on behalf of the buyer. So it's not the cooperating broker that's paying it. So that's the difference. That's the difference. Helen looks puzzled. Anything beyond so?
Yeah. If the seller offering something to sorry.
Mhm.
If the seller's offering something to the co-broke,
Right?
right?
In your listing agreement.
Well, I'm talking as a buyer's agent, right? So if I find that the seller side is offering something to the co-broke, my fee is 3%, right? And they're offering, like, say 2.5%. So I'm collecting a half from my buyer. That's what I need the CBC for. I'm not putting that on the agreement of sale.
You need the CBC for the 0.5%. You've already got the compensation form for the 2.5 that the listing broker is going to pay the buyer brokerage. So you've already got that. So you don't want a CBC for the 0.5%. That's why you would put that in here.
What if the listing agent does not give you the CBC?
Okay, so the question is what if the buyer's the listing agent doesn't give you a CBC? If
you're doing a transaction like EFT.
expired realty, expired. I love that. Who would name their company EXP? Expired. So the question is, and that's where we're running into a problem, Jim, is agents are not giving the CBC. It seems like even if they have the CBC, they don't giving it. They're not giving it for whatever reason, mystery to me. Two things. You could send a CBC to them and ask them to sign it, okay? So you could do that. In lack of that, if there's absolutely no, CBC, they're not sending a CBC, I would put it on the total amount in paragraph 3A. Total, if it's 3%, put 3% in there. Now, what I just had recently was one that the agent put in the 3% there, but then they got a CBC after the fact. After the fact. No, they didn't sign it. But I told the agent, the listing agent is going to have to do an addendum stating that seller's not offering, and they're going to have to get the seller to sign it, obviously. Seller is not offering any cooperating compensation. Otherwise, the seller at settlement could be responsible for both. So that's why I'm hoping, quite frankly, and we had some of this discussion yesterday on the broker hour. I'm hoping that at some point these CBCs go away because they're just very difficult very difficult to handle. We're having David and I are having more questions and more problems with CBCs now than what we did in August and September of last year when it first came into effect. And it's so what kind of problems are we seeing? What kind of problems are we seeing? The primary one is what Jim asked. Is agents are coming to us and I can't get the CBC. And really, you should know, right? You need to know what is being offered prior to showing the property. Because you may have a buyer, and we have had these situations, you may have a buyer that says, I don't want to look at any houses that is not offering a cooperating compensation because I don't want to pay the 3% fee. So that's why you really need. So now that's their choice. You tell a buyer, well, here's this property. There is no cooperating compensation. So understand you will be responsible for my 3% fee. And no, I don't want to look at that property then. That's their right. But you presented the property to them, but it's their right not to look at it if they're going to have to pay it.
Just want to confirm something that you said.
Yes.
So, if the cooperating broker is paying the 2.5%, if they're paying the 2.5%, okay, that 25% from what I understood is all I need, as long as the buyer sign off on the BA's, the buyer agency contract, right, 3% there, I'll still get paid. I don't need to put anything on the unit sale.
If you're going to collect, so the question is
So I'm getting paid the
yeah.
2.5 from the cooperating broker.
Right.
EXP paying me, forget them, let's use somebody else. Citizen Gardens is gonna pay me 2.5.
Another good selection.
All right, let's just stick with that one. So they're paying me 2.5. I had the buyer sign EAC, the buyer agency contract.
Right.
On there, I put my full 3 that I want. The difference is automatic. They're gonna have, I'm gonna send that over to title. They know I'm gonna get paid that 0.5. I don't need to do anything with the agreement of sale, correct?
That's correct. If you're gonna,
Okay,
if
so
you're
it's
gonna,
right, right?
yeah, if you're gonna get paid, if the buyer's gonna pay that 0.5%, you don't have to put anything on the agreement of sale.
But the only time I'm putting it on the agreement of sale.
If the buyer,
broker,
right.
if he says I'm not paying you anything, negotiate it, that's when I'm gonna negotiate it in the deal.
and EXP is doing that. EXP does not use CDCs.
You could do that.
Absolutely.
So you say, well, can you ask them to pay that other half? I don't want to pay that either. So you can put that in the agreement and then,
Right.
but
So then you.
always give that option to them, right? You're not going to say.
Well, no, yeah, it's negotiable, I would say that,
Yeah.
the 0.5%, they already speak off their billings pay, but if they decide to do something, if they wanna try to negotiate in the deal, then that's another conversation. But at the end of the day, they did sign off that they were gonna pay the.
I don't
Yeah.
know that it's, I don't know, I feel like I do need to ask them that. I need to make sure that they understand your, before I just assume because they signed
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Because they signed it, I think I need to say to them again, hey, you're gonna be responsible for 0.5%. Are you
yeah,
okay with that? Do you want me to put this on?
Conversation.
Yeah, but they don't remember. They have unmuted.
Oh, yeah.
So you get for the agreement, yeah.
So it's in there as well, so it's.
Just what I was gonna say, but that's where you need to make sure that you put it in the buyer's list. But it's a conversation, have it at the beginning, understand that we're gonna be looking at properties, and this is the conversation I always have. We're gonna be looking at properties that, the cooperating compensation might only be 2%, might be 2.5%. Understand that you're gonna be responsible for, if I cannot get it from the seller, you're gonna be responsible for that other half of what.
They don't forget.
They're really good at
Once you go there, pay, like they're on top of, like, so that last one I had, they're like, oh, wait, is that the one I have to pay 2.5, or is this one way to go over it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you.
Nicole just had a closing and they didn't know it. At closing, they're like, why? She
Yeah,
said,
well, I'll tell you.
"But I talked about it, put it on the
Yeah.
buyer's estimated cost, and they still don't know.
Since it's still 2:00, I will, I'll tell you a quick story. Some of you have heard it before. I have a buyer agency. I'm going back some years on this. I have a buyer agency. Buyers came in, they're looking for primary residence. They're gonna commute back to New York. And at that time it was 200. Today it would have been 500,000. Back then it was 200,000. Anyway, it was a good dollar amount. $200,000 they were looking up to, and I had 3% in my buyer agency agreement, or $3,000. So showed them a couple of homes, a couple of weekends, showed them homes. They next weekend they came up. Well, you know what? We decided that the commute every day back to New York is going to be a lot. We want to look for a vacation home. Okay, now we're looking for a vacation home. Started out at 2,000. Now we're down to 150. Now we look at some vacation homes. A few weeks later, they come in. Well, you know, we decided that we have friends and relatives that are in all the trades. We decided that we want to buy a fixer upper or foreclosure. So now maximum we want to spend is 100,000. I started at 200, at 3%, I'm down to 100. Okay, that's still covering $3,000. That's covering my minimum. What price they bought? 31.5. 31.5. Now, so now I'm doing the agreement of sale, and I'm going over the estimated closing costs, and the cooperating broker was a foreclosure. Cooperating compensation on that was $1,250. So my fee from them was $1,850. So they talk about, well, they don't remember. Buyers don't remember. These people didn't remember. All of a sudden, they got amnesia. So went over the selling cost, what's this $1,850? I said, that's my fee. I said, remember we had the conversation and I pulled out the buyer agency. I said, my minimum fee is $3,000. And, I said, that's the difference between the $1,250 that the co-op and the, $1,850. Well, that's a lot of money. I said, well, I'll tell you what, for $1,250, I don't even start my truck. We made a joke out of it and they paid me my $1,850. I guess,
Henry said it's 17.
all right. Now she gets a calculator out and checking. Yes,
What do you feel about that it was steering? And it could be perceived as steering if you're asking what the cooperating broker compensation is prior to going to showing.
so the question is, and it did come up on broker hour yesterday, that the comment was made, well, if you're asking what it is it steering? Is it steering? And that probably came from an attorney. But I will tell you that my argument to that is no, it's not steering, because you're giving the buyer the choice. You're giving the buyer the choice. They can look at it or they don't have to. So, but I think in reverse of that, it's more detrimental to the buyer not to know what they're going to have to pay, instead of getting hit with 3% at the end when we do the calculations. So that's why I don't think it's steering, but I know an attorney could make a case for it.
Right, it would just be disclosing. It's all about disclosing,
Absolutely.
you know? So this, if you buy this house, the seller side is offering this coupon,
Mhm.
and then you'll be responsible for 0.5%. But if we don't disclose that to them, if they look at a house and they're not paying it, right?
Right.
So we have to give them the choice. Do
Give-
you want, can you?
Give them choice. The other thing, the other case that we've had is first time home buyers limited on monies. They don't have the 3% to put down. And now if you ask for a pre-qualification from Maria and you put in there 3%, that can change the numbers altogether. So that's why. And by the way, if make sure that you're getting to the loan officer any commission that's due you. I think I've heard that several times, that agents are not doing that. Make sure you. Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. All right, so we also, I think that some point the CBC will go away. There's some states that have done away with it already. Delaware never did start with it. They always put it right in the agreement of sale. I think it will make up things a lot more simpler, just to put it in the agreement of sale. AAR just had their meetings recently, and I don't think there's any discussion yet, but I think there will be.
They take it away.
Well, then what will happen? Okay, so the question is if they take the CBC away, how will we know what it will be? Your commission's always going to go on paragraph 3. So there's not going to be any CBC. Your commission, just like expired realty debt.
But your listing contract will still show both sides?
What's that listing?
Will the listing
Yeah.
contract still, even though this is saying seller on here and not,
Mm-hmm.
it'll still go on your listing, both sides?
Well, the listing might change also. Listing agreement might change also. Yeah, where the seller's not going to be offering.
Like the sellers don't.
The listing agreement doesn't have anything
Right,
about
they
it.
don't do cold work, so you get paid only by the seller. Direct payment from the seller.
And that's what paragraph 3 is.
Okay.
That's what paragraph.
Basically, if I have agreement, in an agreement, 3%, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, this is my pay, and so, like, if CBC, you're gonna go, do I have to put this 3% here in the Zoom?
No, if, well, I'm sorry, if you have a cooperating, compensation, a CBC, your fee here is 3%. Now, you're gonna tell your buyer, my minimum fee is 3%. And now after my story that I just gave you, you're gonna put a figure in here, right? A minimum. Because that's what that says, 3% of sale price or whichever is greater. So that's,
In a agreement on sub, you have to put in the number.
well, what you're gonna have to put in the agreement of sale, if your fee is 3% and the cooperating broker compensation
But
is
if it's gonna
2.5.
go
If there is no cooperating,
Yeah.
then you put your 3%.
here, okay.
Correct.
And here,
Okay.
Yeah.
both, right?
Yeah, you're gonna put it in your buyer agency. That's where the
Right.
buyer's gonna pay you. But put a minimum fee in there. Don't leave that blank. But that,
Because you're gonna be in 3,000,
as much as I can get.
put in there. You're saying
Six.
6,000.
Yep. What do you put it?
I don't think that.
What's that?
I was listening to you, so I didn't see it a whole lot. But I remember, David saying it might want it to be 9 now, because we're around 3,000.
Oh, you can, okay, so the question is, how much do I put in now? I put in 3,000 back in 1994, whatever it was. Put 3,000 in there. What do I put in now? I do put in 6,000. It's arbitrary. You can put in whatever fee you want. Whatever fee you want. I highly recommend that you put a minimum in there. David says, well, base it on a $300,000 and $9,000. That's fine also. You could go to $12,000 and make it a $400,000 house. Well, get as much as you can get. No, it is negotiable. I feel if I get myself, I don't want to scare a buyer away. If I get $6,000 and that's equal to a $200,000 sale, I'm okay with that. If it's not okay with you, that's fine. That's why we're all independent contractors and you're in your own business. Put in there, but I would definitely put in something. Okay. I'm not sure we're gonna get to the end of page 2.
He's 250.
Unusual for those that haven't been through this before. And it's good conversation, right? Good conversation, especially when we get into these new things. Okay. So now we're down to B, closing cost assistance. Seller will pay the following amount towards buyer's closing costs other than a brokerage fee payable to broker for buyer as permitted by the mortgage lender, if any. Seller is only obligated to pay up to the amount or percentage which is approved by the mortgage lender. That goes back to our old seller assist.
Well, can you switch microphones? They're saying on Zoom they can't hear you.
You don't have one.
Oh my.
This is yours.
Get your shit together, Bob.
Hello. My
This here. Right.
my life was a hell of a lot easier before Zoom. Can you hear me now? All right. So you're gonna put in the seller assist, whether that's 3%, 6%, whatever the mortgage lender allows. Is that still typical, Maria, 3% or 6%, depending on the amount down?
Conventional.
Oh, wait, I gotta get you a mic.
Conventional is max 6%, but it depends on the down payment. So it's 3%. You can't go as high. FHA is 6% across the board. So 6% FHA is always really good for seller's concession.
Very good. I'm getting into this now. For the last 10 minutes. What's that? I like putting it offline. Okay, so we're good there. We're good on paragraph 3B then. It was a lot easier than the A. Settlement and possession to be. Settlement date is blank or before buyer and seller agree. What are you putting on there for your settlement dates when you're doing an agreement of sale?
30 days.
30 days, 45. What? 35, 45, 45? Check with the lender. Check with the lender's the best advice. Ed's got a very good point, and I'll repeat it because I didn't have the microphone over there. Check with the listing agent. Check with the listing agent, see what the seller, how much time the seller needs. Because you don't want to do an agreement of sale and now the seller needs 60 days or there's something there. So always communications with the listing agent is a very good thing. Check with them. I'm still putting in myself 45 to 60 days. I'm not doing 30, only because there's glitches. We all have the glitches that looks like everything's smooth. The lender's telling me everything's smooth. And I end up extending them. I do not like to extend closing dates because you get a lot of people upset when you have to extend closing dates. It says on or before. So if you're ready in 30 days, close in 30 days. If buyer seller is ready in 30 days, close in 30 days. The problem is when you put 30 days in there, and I'm not saying it can't be done because it is done. The problem is when you put 30 days and now we get a glitch that the lender was not expecting, which that happens. The lender was not expecting. Now we've got to go to the seller and we got to ask them to extend the closing date. And now the seller gets all bent out of shape because they have their movers all lined up. They've got emptied their house out. I've had all kinds of horror stories from sellers that, well, moved all my furniture out and I got to go rent a room because I'm not having closing. So that's why I like the longer closing date. The more times that you go back to extending dates, no matter what it is, it irritates especially sellers, but buyers as well.
I'll tell you why I like the earlier date. Because if I put 45 or 60 days, lenders don't start looking at it, or title company, especially our title company, says they don't look at it until 2 weeks before. So they use every bit of it. So the on or before never happens.
Well, I would have a conversation with the lender and the title company.
That is just their.
Well, I would have a conversation with the title company. I don't think that is right at all. I will tell you that the agreement of sale, which we're going to get into it, the agreement of sale says that title work has to be ordered within 7 days. Now I know, huh?
Well, how, but they say they're busy and you're. That's the answer.
Okay, and now, and I'll tell you the problem with that is. The problem is now they're not doing it for 2 weeks before. Now something shows up in title and it's going to take 30 days or 60 days to get it to correct the problem. Now, if they would have done that, did that search right after, and I understand what they're saying to a degree. They're saying about the inspections because most transactions fall through because of inspections. But even if they ordered it after the inspection period, they would have more time. You wouldn't have closing stalled for 2 and 3 weeks or more because of a title problem. That's that's why PAR changed that. That change in the agreement is not very old. And they did it because there were so many problems with transactions having a title problem, and then transactions are delayed. Buyers had to close on their house, they had to be out of an apartment, and now at the last minute we have a title problem. Why was that not addressed before? Why was that not addressed before?
It is our title company.
They were so quick, they closed that, you know, tenant in it,
Yeah.
7 days and they.
They definitely order it, but they don't go looking at it or process it. Yeah.
I'll have a conversation with Lori on it. I'll have a conversation with Lori on it, because that definitely can mess up a transaction and when it could have been handled ahead of time.
Fine,
Okay. I'll tell them that you told me.
thank you.
State rep for mercy. So if someone's telling me they're trying to do that down payment and they want to do it 210 days, I should be away. But a regular line goes really fast, but if there's anyone else involved, 45 days, you guys minimal, because we are at the mercy of the state.
And the county program also.
Any. You have to get, can't get free. You have to sign a contract. Did it, actually, we've done all of stuff. And then I think one of the states, New Jersey, oh my God, we finally did cancel it and we did a regular. That's why a lot of times we got fired. Fun just to back up because suckers don't want to wait sometimes. So 45 days or more.
They don't want to wait, Maria, because the listing agent didn't prepare them for it. Okay. All right. So anyway, we took care of the settlement date. Going to be 90 days. Settlement will occur in the county where the property is located or in adjacent county during normal business hours unless buyer and seller agree. Adjacent counties, that means that it could be in the Lehigh Valley, but it does not mean that you have to go to Philadelphia for it. Okay, it's adjacent, yeah, adjacent. If I have a situation where it's an out-of-town realtor and the title company's from out of town, and they say you got to come to Philadelphia, I said, no, you got to come to the Poconos.
They have that.
They can get closers up here. And at the time of settlement, the following will be prorated. You can read that paragraph. We know what needs to be prorated. The school bills, something to keep in mind. We're used to school bills in Monroe County and all the surrounding counties. We're used to school tax bills running from July 1 to June 30th, right? This agreement says that in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Scranton school districts, they run on a calendar year. So keep that in mind if you're selling up in Scranton. Conveyance from seller will be a fee simple deed of special warranty unless otherwise stated here. You typically will not change that at all. Payment of transfer taxes will be divided equally between buyer and seller unless otherwise stated here. Just watch that. If you're selling a foreclosure, a HUD foreclosure, for instance, they do not pay any transfer taxes. So that you would put in 2% there. That's not going to be divided equally. It's not going to be divided equally. I've had situations also where buyers, they're in multiple offers and the buyers want to sweeten the pot a little bit. So the buyer will pay the seller's transfer tax. So if you have one of those situations, that's why the blank lines are there. You would put in that the buyer will pay 2%. Everybody's leaving me. No, I'm gonna be finished here in 2 minutes. Possession is to be delivered by deed, existing keys, physical possession to a vacant property free of debris and with all structures broom clean at time of settlement unless seller before signing this agreement has identified in writing that the property is subject to a lease. So make sure that you go over with your sellers that the house has to be broom clean. Doesn't have to be spit shine, but it has to be broom clean, everything else. That's one of the issues that we see a lot at the settlement table is, well, there's trash left behind. There's trash left behind. Well, first of all, if it's my listing, I'll go out and I know that the people moved out. I'll go out a day or two before settlement, do a walkthrough myself just to make sure the property is the way that it should be. And if there's trash behind, then if there's trash behind, then I address it then. I will tell you, don't rely on, and I've had this situation, personally, don't rely on the seller saying, well, I paid somebody to pick the trash up. They're going to pick it up tomorrow. Now you have closing and they're gone. Then I got to get a call from my buyer a week later. Well, the trash is still there. Trash is still there. Guess who paid to haul that trash away? I did. To satisfy my buyer, and it was only fair because my policy now is the seller says to me, I paid somebody to pick it up. They're going to pick it up tomorrow. What's the company's name? What's their phone number? I'll call them, and I've done this right at settlement table. Did you get paid to pick this up? And I had one case. I said, no, I told them I'd pick it up, but they didn't pay me. So that's why I'll do it right at settlement table. I don't like taking commission dectomies. And then, of course, paragraph 8 is the seller identified in writing that the property is subject to a lease, a short-term rental agreement, possession is to be delivered by deed, existing keys, and assigning of existing leases and short-term rental agreements for the property. And then there is a tenant-occupied property addendum. And the rest of paragraph 8 said that the seller has to provide copies of the leases and make sure that you get those leases and make sure that nothing in that, like an automatic renewal or anything in there that could be detrimental to the buyer. So you want to make sure that they get